The murder of John Lennon has been solved, and the results are not encouraging. He was born on October 9, 1940, in Liverpool, England, and went by John Winston Lennon. Lennon experienced both positive and negative things in his early years. After being separated from his mother Julia, John was nurtured primarily by his Aunt Mimi, which caused him to experience mental loss at an early age. In 1958, Julia lost her life in a horrific vehicle accident. When he was a teenager, he had begun to reconnect with her. His songs would always reflect this grief. John Lennon shone his intelligence and rebelliousness at an early age, despite his troubled home environment. These characteristics will subsequently influence his open nature and inventive music. John Lennon formed the Quarry Men, a skiffle group, in 1957. The band changed their name to the Beatles after George Harrison and Paul McCartney joined. The band became a full seven-piece in 1962 when Ringo Starr joined. The primary producer and co-lead vocalist was John Lennon. By initiating the British invasion and transforming pop music into a legitimate art form, the Beatles had a profound impact on the world. He is widely regarded as having collaborated with Paul McCartney on the most successful songs in history, including Help, All You Need Is Love, A Hard Day's Night, Come Together, and Strawberry Fields Forever. Lennon stretched the boundaries of what rock music could say and do with his witty, honest, bizarre, and politically conscious words. The Beatles experienced unparalleled success over the ensuing years, evolving from a well-liked British rock group to a global cultural phenomenon. They were the world's most well-known band from 1963 till the late 1960s. This era is frequently referred to as Beatlemania. With successes like She Loves You, I Want to Hold Your Hand, A Hard Day's Night, and Help, they dominated the charts in both the US and the UK. The tunes The band's sound evolved with each album, moving from straightforward love ballads to intricate compositions that defied categorization. The 1967 release of Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band marked the creative pinnacle of the band and rock music in general. They were well known for much more than just their music. The Beatles were viewed as the leaders of a cultural revolution that combined fashion, politics, youth, freedom, and rebellion. However, the tragic death of their longtime leader, Brian Epstein, in 1967 was a devastating blow that led to the group's gradual disintegration. Epstein, frequently referred to as the Fifth Beatle, was responsible for balancing the group's personal and professional life. No one in the band could succeed him as boss after his untimely death from an accidental drug overdose. Things quickly deteriorated, particularly in regards to outside influence, financial issues, and creative control. Disagreements about the band's new business direction under Apple Corps, Paul McCartney's want for his future father-in-law to lead the group, and growing links between John Lennon and avant-garde artist Yoko Ono all contributed to the fissures. Due to fame, divergent viewpoints, and personal objectives, for musicians who had formerly been close brothers began to drift apart. John Lennon took the crucial decision to leave the Beatles in 1969. His departure was not immediately announced to the public, however. He began searching for a musical identity outside of the band, and his friendship with Yoko Ono had grown to be a significant aspect of both his personal and professional lives. Lennon had a difficult year with the Beatles. The Let It Be sessions were obviously tense, and even though Abbey Road showcased the group's skill for the final time, it was obvious that their time together was running out. In a covert meeting in September 1969, Lennon announced his departure to the world. Paul McCartney would be the first to publicly announce that the band had disbanded in April of 1970. Lennon began a singular, very personal, and frequently political career when he departed. His first solo album, John Lennon/Plastic Ono Band, was released in 1970 and was a raw, emotionally charged record. The album, which lacked the Beatles' opulent production, captured Lennon at his most vulnerable and unvarnished. In songs like Mother, Working Class Hero, and God, Lennon discussed his difficult upbringing, his disillusionment with celebrity, and rejection that aid religious and cultural communities. Critics commended the record for its straightforward manner and honesty. It was regarded as a daring comeback to the arts. It revealed to the public a different Lennon, one who was more concerned with discovering the truth and himself than with pleasing others or topping the charts. Lennon made the decision to avoid the spotlight in the middle of the 1970s. He had what he referred to as his house husband phase. John Lennon, his son, was born in 1975 to him and Yoko. John decided to put his new family first and quit performing music. When his first kid, Julian, was a little boy, he missed being a father a lot. Lennon took advantage of this opportunity to read, cook, and live a more sedate life in their apartment in New York City, away from the spotlight. He also experienced personal issues during this time, including his well-known issues with intoxication and odd behavior. Prior to his trip, Lennon experienced what he thereafter referred to as his lost weekend. He resided in Los Angeles and partied and drank a lot with other celebrities like Harry Nilsson and Ringo Starr during his 18-month separation from Yoko Ono. Among other things, a well-known person was expelled from the Troubadour bar for being unruly. These incidents garnered a lot of attention and demonstrated Lennon's emotional turmoil as he attempted to rebalance his life following the Beatles. Double Fantasy, 1980, an album he co-produced with Yoko Ono, marked Lennon's eagerly anticipated comeback to music after a 5-year hiatus. Their love, maturing, and contentment with their life were all celebrated in the record. Songs like Woman and Just Like Starting Over, which featured themes of family, harmony, and getting along with people, revealed a more mature Lennon. Despite initial negative reviews, the record became a huge smash because listeners were thrilled to hear Lennon's voice once more. There were several significant upheavals in John Lennon's personal life, starting with his first marriage to Cynthia Powell. They were both students at the Liverpool College of Art when they first met in the late 1950s. Cynthia, a reserved and polite young lady, was initially captivated by John Lennon's rebellious nature, captivating charisma, and developing musical skills. They fell in love while they were students, despite John's frequently erratic and surprising mood swings. Despite being new to Beatlemania, Lennon decided to marry Cynthia when she became pregnant in mid-1962 as their bond grew deeper. On August 23, 1962, the wedding was held at Liverpool's Mount Pleasant Register Office. The civil service was peaceful. The occasion seemed less significant than it actually was because of Lennon's rising stardom with the Beatles. Julian Lennon, their only child, was born on April 8, 1963, not long after that. He will later pursue a career as a vocalist. However, Lily and John Lennon's marriage quickly suffered as a result of their quickly growing celebrity and the ongoing turmoil that accompanied it. John traveled and recorded more and more, spending less time at home as Beatlemania swept the globe, leaving Cynthia to raise their son largely alone. Because John cheated on her, was emotionally distant, and rarely showed up, their relationship was deteriorating. It was also difficult for him to care for his family because of his increasing drug usage and the pressure of being one of the most well-known individuals in the world. Things deteriorated in the middle of the 1960s as Lennon began to feel more estranged from his family and long for a closer artistic and spiritual bond. In 1966, John went to an art show in London and met the avant-garde artist Yoko Ono. By then, his marriage to Cynthia was already in disarray. He immediately and profoundly connected with Yoko on an intellectual and emotional level. It also accelerated the dissolution of his first marriage. In November 1968, John and Cynthia ended their 6-year marriage. A chapter in his life came to an end at this point. His early fame and the period before the Beatles went hallucinogenic were major factors in that. When Lennon married Yoko Ono in 1969, he took a bold step. Ono was an outspoken peace activist, multimedia artist, and vocalist of Japanese descent. They were unable to be apart in the years following their meeting. In addition to being in a romantic relationship, they shared a strong spiritual and artistic bond. They were married on March 20, 1969, in Gibraltar. It was a symbolic union that was far different from a traditional marriage. For Lennon, it marked the beginning of a new era centered on extreme self-expression, social activity, and self-improvement. Many individuals are aware that they protested the Vietnam War and promoted world peace by holding a bed-in for peace in Amsterdam while on vacation. The relationship between the Beatles became highly contentious as many fans and media outlets blamed Yoko on Lennon's increasing estrangement from them. Conversely, Lennon claimed that Yoko was his inspiration and fortitude, pushing him to experiment with different forms of art and focus on solo projects. In addition to collaborating on art endeavors, they had a child together, Sean Lennon, born on October 9, 1975, John's 35th birthday. John put a lot of effort into being a loving and present father to Sean, but not to Julian. In order to be a stay-at-home father and devote himself to raising his kid, baking bread, and creating a more tranquil and grounded home life for them in New York City, he left the music industry for 5 years. Yoko carried on with their commercial and artistic endeavors during this period. This confirmed that she was not just his inspiration but also had a significant impact on his post-Beatles career. She had a significant impact on a number of John Lennon's solo albums, including Imagine and Double Fantasy, where her risk-taking and experimental artistic style blended with Lennon's more melodic and reflective works. And Sensitivity. Although their relationship was scrutinized by the world, they were close and collaborated until Lennon's untimely death in 1980. For decades, the circumstances surrounding John Lennon's tragic murder have plagued conspiracy theorists, historians, and those who loved him. However, it has long been known that a mad admirer named Mark David Chapman killed him on December 8, 1980, outside the Dakota skyscraper in New York City. Confusion, contradictory accounts, and agonizing speculation have surrounded the entire narrative of his murder, the reasons and methods behind it, and the broader context of the latter years of his life. However, freshly discovered documents, long secret interviews, and difficult-to-locate recordings might have finally provided the answer. The reality is far worse than anyone anticipated. The new knowledge goes beyond the horrific night of Lennon's death. They delve deeply into a political and psychological underworld that raises issues like his deception, espionage, and whether John Lennon, once a symbol of peace, became too hazardous for some influential factions. Later declassified documents confirmed the long-standing rumors that Lennon was on the FBI watch list. But when those close to Lennon began discussing it, things got less apparent. They claimed that some of the most influential people detested him because of his political activism, particularly his opposition to the Vietnam War and his support for radical groups, and that his phone calls and public appearances had been heard. Was there a far larger scheme behind John Lennon's murder, or was it the act of a deranged guy seeking fame? Chapman may have been more than a lone wolf, according to a new study, which raises interest in this frightening subject. Even though he was known to carry the Catcher in the Rye with him and claim that it was his manifesto, further investigation into his mental health history, his memory problems, and his apparent composure following the shooting have all led to theories about psychological conditioning, some of which have suggested connections to intelligence programs such as MKUltra. The revelations from Lennon's final interviews are even more frightening, particularly the eerie assertions he made in 1980 that he felt watched and unsafe. He spoke candidly about the pressures of celebrity, the betrayals of former acquaintances, and the overwhelming sense that everyone in his immediate vicinity wanted to silence him, not just musically, but permanently. "You don't know how close to the edge I've been and how many times I've looked over it," Lennon stated during one of their final conversations. Under a false identity, a former security specialist who formerly worked for top intelligence organizations and claimed to have been assigned to guard well-known figures in the arts recently released a memoir. In it, he discussed Project Eclipse, a covert operation designed to apprehend prominent people deemed to be subversive threats. The time, specifics, and goals sound a lot like things Lennon did in the 1970s and early 1980s, although he never mentioned Lennon by name. John Lennon's death was more tragic than simply losing a great artist, if even a portion of this unsettling account is accurate. It's a depressing illustration of how organizations may attempt to silence the most critical viewpoints. Lennon wrote a song titled, "Give Peace a Chance." It's possible that he died for it. These assumptions are unlikely to be confirmed by the official record, but mounting evidence challenges our preconceived notions. Previously believed to be a tragic, isolated incident, John Lennon's death now appears to have been brought on by politics, fear, and power. As that web grows, one thing is becoming increasingly obvious. Finally, the truth. It's not simply frightening to come out after being in the dark for decades. It's not good.